Good day, and welcome to What's Happening MoCo, an authentic, unscripted podcast from your Montgomery County government. Now, here's your host, Derek Kenny.
Good day, and welcome to What's Happening MoCo. Today we have a special treat. We are shining the resident spotlight on Brian G. Myers. He's an author who has a book about the history of Montgomery County, Maryland. About 30 or so of the most interesting, shocking, wild stories associated with our very own MoCo. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Derek.
Thank you for being here. And as soon as I saw you, what you're going to find, guys, when you talk about history, a lot of times you associate history with older people. Not saying that that's something relegated to people that are more senior, but you don't always associate it with someone Brian's age. Brian, how old are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 24 years old. I was born in 2000.
Whoa. Whoa. All right.
Yeah. So I've always had a love of history. I mean, it started when I was about 6 years old. I was visiting my grandparents' house, and I noticed the family history book, a big old genealogy I love to read. So I picked it up off the shelf, started reading it, and I think it might have been a little bit. I have ADHD, so I've heard that correlates a little bit with a love of names and dates. And if you have looked at a genealogy before, it's chock full of them. It's nothing but names and dates in there.
Oh, great.
So yeah, I just started looking, and I also found a love of history through that, and I just kept looking and looking and looking, and I've been working at my own family history for about 13 years now. But yeah, here I am. Age 24, I guess.
Now, when you say working at it, I read the press release. Are you understating things a bit? Did you document things as you were working on it? What is the results of your labor looking at the genealogy?
So I mean, I've worked on my mom's side, and I've worked on my dad's side. I have a working family tree of over 25,000 people.
Okay.
So that's something that I've been working on. I've also been working on the side on a genealogy that I've had that really need to get back into formatting, because I've been working on it since I was 13. So
wow.
There's a little bit of 13-year-old formatting in there. And
I can imagine when you're 13, this is more like you're writing things on construction papers.
Right,
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, a lot more journalism and business writing classes since then. So
all right.
Yeah. But I'm putting that together. I think that's up to over 100 pages now, and that's not out for publication or anything. That's mainly for personal use and just for history in the future, because I work with a lot of people across the country who are distantly related to me, and they reach out and I reach out, and we work together saying, okay, how are we related here? Are we sure on these facts? Do you have any photos that of my relatives that I might be able to share with some of my relatives? That's how I get family images that a lot of my family members have never seen before.
Right.
I'll go out and talk to people online, and sometimes I'll have pictures of my great grandparents that nobody in my family who's currently alive has ever seen.
Oh wow!
And then they ask me where'd you get that from? I was like, oh, my third cousin, 3 times removed, who lives out in Saskatchewan.
Where did you start your process? You started, I guess. What type of resources did you use? You mentioned in-person interviews and phone calls. What other resources did you use as you tried to build your genealogy? Just kind of tips for others that might be searching or finding ways to build their own family trees.
Yeah, sure. So I think what held me back, when I was starting out is one, I was 11, so my frontal lobe isn't fully developed to, have all those ideas right out in front of me. But one thing that's really cool is, as I got older, you start getting more ideas, and you start realizing more, there are way more resources out there, not just on the internet. Go in person, go to those archives. Don't be afraid to, come up to a stranger and say, hey, I'm looking for such and such a record, and, go on a little tour with them, because in a lot of the cases, they've been really, really helpful to me. If I ask one more thing, I was also looking for this, they'll be like, yeah, sure, it's my job. I'll come and help you look for it.
Wow.
We have it in this file back here. Maryland State Archives, for instance, that's one of my best in-person resources if you're looking at genealogy in Maryland. Montgomery County Historical Society, which is referenced in that book a lot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Jane Sween Library. That's where I found a lot of really cool and really important to my family history, like baptismal records, death records, marriage records. Yeah, I mean, I found my great-great-grandma's birth record in there, and for a while, I mean, until I started looking, and that's something I address in the preface too. My parents are both from the Baltimore area. We had no idea that we had any connection to the Montgomery County area because
really?
we thought we were just coming into it. We didn't think we were, circling back around to it. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool experience. It's a really cool full circle experience.
All right. And also, you just graduated from University of Maryland. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yes.
All right. And what was your major at the University of Maryland?
So I ended up with information systems and marketing. I started out in journalism. I decided to switch over into business just because I wanted a broader spectrum of things to do. And personally, I didn't feel like I had as much voice as if I went into journalism, went into a conventional journalism job. And so after I did business, I graduated from University of Maryland, and then I got a job as a business technology consultant.
Wow.
And in the interim, between actually starting that job and between graduating from college, I graduated from college in May of 2023, and I started my job in October of 2023. Gave me 5 months to do nothing if I wanted to.
Right.
But I get really antsy when I don't have anything to do. So that's why I reached out to my publisher and said, "Hey, I got a little idea here, and here it is."
So you say you're a publisher. There's in this day and age, there's a lot of people that have written books, and many people are self-published. But how did you go about getting a book published with a publisher? And also, tell us also about the first book you wrote, because this is your second book, so you have 2 books, right?
Yes.
So I guess it's a lot you can share right now. What was the topic of your first book? What inspired you to write it? And then what was the process like finding a publisher to get it out?
Sure. So for the first book, that also resulted from me being antsy and me wanting to go out and do something.
Right.
University of Maryland is notorious for having a very, very long winter break, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I love having a long winter break.
I like winter breaks.
You do too.
Winter breaks are great.
But after a while, I get a little antsy, and I'm like, okay, I need to go out and do something. So I went on a freelance website called Upwork.com, and I was just looking around, seeing whatever popped at me. And there was a notification for a job offering write 50 facts about your hometown for a book series that we're doing. And I said, you know what? Why don't I just do that? Because it sounded really fun. It sounded really interesting. So I reached out and did a submission for that, and publisher got back to me, and she said, wow, I really like that idea. So I ran with it, worked on that from December, and then came out in April of 2020, December 2019 to April 2020. Yeah, and I mean, looking back, that was a crazy year. That was a COVID year.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about. I started that first book before COVID started, and now coming back to it, I feel like I've been through so much life experience, and well, okay, and I'm 24.
You're 24.
I'm 24.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to sound too pretentious.
Okay, that's okay.
But yeah, I mean, during that time, I went through a lot of life experience and self-reflection relatively, and a lot more writing classes, a lot more done virtually than in person.
Oh, wow.
And I came back, and I felt a lot more confident, and I said, you know what, I'm going to submit for a second project, and so that's where this came out of.
All right. So let's talk about this. This is what really brought me into this. I love the way it's described: wild, shocking, as well as interesting stories from Montgomery County, Maryland. Over 30 chapters in this book. It's a paperback, and it's going to be available when?
February 4th, 2025.
So by the time this podcast is out, people will be able to go to the stores and find this book or look online, buy the book, and benefit one of their very own people that's been spotlighted on the What's Happening MoCo podcast, Brian. All right, Brian G. Myers. What does the G stand for?
Gregory. Shout out my dad, Gregory Myers.
There you go. All right. I knew when there's a G in there and it's included in the name, it has significance. All right.
Yeah.
Brian G. Myers. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the stories. Okay. So we've learned about your history and your short history, relatively short compared to someone that's older like me.
Yes, relatively short.
But you have over, I guess, a decade worth of research, analytical, and writing skills and experience. So how did that contribute to this book? And then let's talk about some of the cool stories that you have in the book.
Sure. So I talked a little bit about the beginning of this process, going into writing this book. And it does stem back to my genealogical background. So another resource that I use for genealogical research is going through local newspapers. So that includes, the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, Montgomery County Sentinel, and the Frederick News Post. So I went through a lot of those newspapers, and as I was looking for other relatives, I kept seeing accompanying articles about all these wild stories, like people's wedding dresses being set on fire, back in the 1910s, people running away and getting married, not, telling their parents. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, this seems, I'm picturing it in my head as a movie, and I'd love to write something about this, from a 21st century perspective.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my publisher initially and said, hey, I'd love to do something on Western Maryland newspapers, and spotlight some of these really interesting articles that I found. And that didn't really fit the scope of what series that they have right now, but they said, well, do you want to limit it to one county, and do you want to write a broader range of stories? So I said, well, why not do Montgomery County? That's where I lived for, 22, 23 years. So
all right,
here we are.
Here we are. All right. Let's share the first story. Let's give us one of the stories that you might describe as shocking. What's a shocking story that someone might find in your book?
A shocking story. So, excuse me, let me clear my throat. So a shocking story that I might share is. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's already worn down a little bit. I've been.
I have my fingerprints all over. I was ready to start reading it. I was waiting for the autograph and take it home, start reading, so I can share my knowledge of the county, some things everyone doesn't know about the county.
Yeah, of course, you're getting a preview, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So a shocking story. The first one that comes to mind is my longest chapter, which is on Vernon Thompson. He is a character. They called him Villa Thompson, after Pancho Villa, who was a renowned, I think it was a Mexican militant. I have to look. See, I have to look back. I have to study. I'm like, this book is going to be news to me too.
like you did the research, you wrote it, but you didn't memorize every detail of the book.
It's like studying for a test, and then as soon as you take the test, everything goes out.
No worries.
No, but I say that to mean that he was very quick draw. This is a man who lived in Germantown. He lived from 1880 to 1921. He lived in Germantown. He was very known for being a quick draw guy, very quick to violence.
Oh, wow. And quick draw is almost like a cowboy, I guess. You quick draw, like literally with a gun, or?
That's sometimes, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
That's why they called him Villa.
Wow.
And there's a story in that chapter about how some people think that he served in the Spanish-American War, and some people think that because of an illness that he sustained during that time, it kind of messed with his mental state a bit.
Oh, wow.
And that's maybe why he was the way he was. But to put it into perspective, he wanted to marry a woman. The woman's family didn't approve. And so he threw, I believe, a rock through a window at her uncle. Luckily, he didn't die, but
he didn't die. Okay, but he hit him.
He hit him.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, he hit him through the window.
That's a way to respond to that, I guess.
Yeah.
We do not recommend violence on those happening MoCo podcasts.
We here at the Montgomery County Council do not endorse brick violence or rock violence of any kind.
Right. There you go. All right. So we've learned about this hyper violent man who may or may not have mental illness, and had some interesting stories about his response to his environment and things that happened to him.
Correct.
Wow. Give us one of your other give us an interesting story. One of your interesting stories.
Interesting story.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interview that I did with Joe Oconfora. He used to be a teacher back in the early 1970s in the Montgomery County public schools. He worked at Parkland Junior High School, which is now Parkland Middle School. But back in the early 1970s, he got a job as a teacher. But the Montgomery County School Board found out that he had previously had some involvement with the gay rights movement while he was a student at Penn State. And so I think about a month into his tenure as a teacher, they said, okay, they're like, all right, well, we're letting you go from this position. So the chapter basically goes into how he fought that decision, what the result of that was, and what he's up to now and how he feels about the county now. And I think it was really eye-opening to me because, I think Montgomery County is, a very progressive area, but I think it was eye-opening to me to say, wow, this was only 50 some years ago. And, even looking today, we've still got a ways to go, with making everybody feel like they belong here, Yeah.
Especially, and I think maybe in some ways we may have taken a step back in the last week or so when it comes to ensuring that everyone feels like making everybody feel like they belong here. And also, I just want a quick self plug. Our last podcast episode was focused on the LGBTQIA plus two plus community. So good information there in the last podcast episode. But it's disheartening to see that just 50 years ago, somebody was denied a job that they were qualified for simply because they were different in some way than others, and that's terrible. But it is interesting. It's interesting to see a glimpse at what people were dealing with in Montgomery County just 50 years ago. And as you mentioned earlier, we are one of the most progressive counties in the country, but just 50 years ago, we weren't.
Right.
So wow, it's good that you share that story. It is interesting.
Right. And it's a debate that's still going on today. It's not set in stone, which is the really interesting thing.
Indeed. What are some of the other stories you have to share? I just love stories. I love stories about MoCo. And then also it's great to learn more about the county that we all love, especially in a historical sense. And then of course having people that listen to the podcast can share. Hey, did you hear about this? You probably didn't know about the hidden stories in Montgomery County because people may not have known about the angry guy or this teacher that was mistreated. What are some of the other stories that people may not be aware of?
Right. So, you brought up the adjective hidden, which of course, Hidden History of Montgomery County. I think one of the stories that best serves that title is Woodstock, which is a property located, if you keep going down Route 28.
The Woodstock?
No.
Okay.
No, not 1969 Woodstock.
Okay.
That sounds, it would be a great chapter, but
it'll be an incredible chapter.
A little out of scope. But so if you go all the way down 28 toward Dickerson, there's a little marker that marks where Woodstock is. And Woodstock is the property where George Washington had one of his tenant farms.
Okay.
In Maryland. And so the last tenant house in Montgomery County is over there. So it is still being lived in by the Boblet family. Megan Boblet in particular.
Oh, wow.
They're wonderful family, very gracious. So they allowed me to they gave me a tour around their house. It's a very historic house. It was built in pre-1800. It dates back to pre-1800.
Whoa.
And
it's still standing?
Yes, it's still standing.
Oh, gosh, okay.
It's definitely been through some hardships.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about in the book how when she went in there, it was. I mean, I'll let you read the book, but it was in a rough shape.
Okay.
And she really put in the work to and the man hours to put all that back together. And now if you look at it, she calls it a Frankenhouse because so there's one part of it that was built or dates back to pre-1800.
Mm-hmm.
And they can tell because of some of the architectural features. And then there's another part of it of the house that was built in 1899. And you can tell because there is a little etching in pencil in one of, I think, under the stairs, if I remember correctly. Under the stairs, it says W.T. Hilton, 1899. So that was the builder for the house. And he actually, if y'all are familiar with Hilton Funeral Home, William T. Hilton is also the one who founded Hilton Funeral Home up in Barnesville.
Okay.
He was also the builder of that house.
Wow, so he had a funeral home and he also built homes as well.
Yeah.
And homes that last, apparently. That last, over 100 years, I guess, 140, I guess. My
Something
math
like
is
that.
a little off here, but that's a long time. We have some homes that don't last 30, 40 years. It's incredible. Now, what do you? What's your pitch? Do you have a pitch yet for your book? When someone says, "Why should I buy your book?"
Well, I mean, I like to say, somebody asked me that question the other day, and I said, I wrote a history book that I would like to read, because I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I was in school and I was reading history books, and I would read through some passages and be like, this is just really boring. I feel like they're talking at me and not with me.
Right.
They're not really catering to what I want to hear. And, what I want to hear is, I put in some different topics in there. I talk about, different sports in the county. I talk about, some more modern topics too, because, we're not just the 1700s and the 1800s of history. We're the 1900s and even the 2000s of history.
Yeah.
So, I also have some pop culture in there. There is a chapter in there where I interviewed one of the directors of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's stop right there. Fantastic movie. One of the movies that I like horror movies. So,
okay.
And it was quite shocking. When I first saw it, I was amazed at how scary the movie was without a big special effects budget, to say the least, without huge, and obviously not without a huge production budget, but it was done so well that it really brought you into it. It was a fast watch. Yeah. And at the very end, I mean, I won't talk about it, but just remind people what that is, the Blair Witch Project, and then what year that came out, and then let's talk more about your conversation with the director.
Sure. So the Blair Witch Project, if you haven't heard of it, it is a movie set in Maryland, and it centers around the story of three campers and three campers / videographers, and so they're going into the Blair Woods in Maryland to film a documentary about the Blair Witch, who is rumored to lurk there and have caused these strange occurrences. And it's a horror movie, so you can guess what happens from there.
Right? Yeah. How about that? There's some horrific stuff.
Yes, yeah. It's in the name.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I mean, the significance of that movie is it was one of the first significant widespread found footage films that was ever distributed. So if you're familiar with the Wreck movies or Paranormal Activity, that was one of the precursors to it. It came out in 1999. And the way that they did the marketing for it, I mean, I go into more detail in the book in my interview with the co-director, but the way that they did the marketing for it was genius, because a lot of people, when they came out of the movie, they said, like, we don't even know if this was real or not. Like, this could have been real. They didn't go in to watch a horror movie. They thought, well, maybe this was a documentary. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to interview the director. And fun fact, the director is actually from Tacoma Park, Maryland.
All right.
Actually
Let's go.
grew up.
All right.
Yeah. Actually grew up right around here. Talks to me about going to the Wheaton Mall and playing at the arcades when he was a little kid.
Right.
And some of the shows and movies that he watched when he was growing up, and how that contributed to the ultimate project that he put together in the late 1990s.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Another fruit of MoCo that has gone worldwide.
Yes, we should be very proud of that one.
I'm definitely proud. I really enjoyed seeing the movie. And I was around in 1999, so I actually saw it when it came out. And a year later, we have an author born. There we go. It's fantastic. All right.
Yes.
So we know now that, of course, the book has value. Where can people buy your book when it comes out? And again, it is available for purchase February 4th.
February 4th, yes.
It's published conventionally, and people can find it where?
People can find it. We have some local bookstores chiming in saying that they want to purchase some copies. So
fantastic. Right.
Go to your local bookstore. Barnes & Noble, that is one spot where Arcadia Publishing and the History Press shows up a lot. And then, of course, on Amazon. You can buy it on there, or you can buy it on Arcadia Publishing's website. Or you can come, we're still scheduling these out, but we've had some book events coming up. I have one, I think, on February 12th at 7 p.m. at Wonderland Books. I don't know when this is coming out, but we'll find out.
February 12th, Wonderland Books. Okay. Fantastic.
Then May 14th at 7 p.m., we're doing another event with Gaithersburg Community Museum at Saints Row Brewing in Gaithersburg.
Oh, wow. That's great. Now, are you going to do a book reading, I guess, as an author, where you'll be reading some chapters of your book?
I expect
to. As well as signing your books as well?
I expect to. I mean, I haven't done a book event before, but I expect to.
well, congratulations. We're so proud to be able to shine the What's Happening MoCo Resident Spotlight on you, Brian G. Myers.
Thank you.
Who has the book, Hidden Gems, Hidden
History of Montgomery
County, Maryland. We had a County Cape Montgomery show called Hidden Gems, but Hidden History of Montgomery County, Maryland. Stories that you may or probably don't know about Montgomery County, Maryland. Read this book. Support our local author, local businessman, recent Maryland University grad, and that's What's Happening MoCo. You've gotten some hidden history from Montgomery County, Maryland today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And Brian, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Derek. Second of all, I just put up a Facebook page, so Hidden History Montgomery County, Maryland. And you can just connect with me on Instagram or buy the book as well. Follow your local bookstores as well, like the ones I mentioned, Wonderland Books, Gaithersburg Community Museum. Keep up to date because I'm working with all these people right now, and we're gonna get the show on the road.
That's wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
And at the end of each show, we often ask people to ask the question. You ask a question, we'll respond to you, and Brian asks the question, hey, why don't you talk about my book on your podcast? And I thought, why not? It sounds great. And it really delivered. Great stories.
Thank you.
Great content. Great young man that has done a wonderful work, not only for his family with the genealogy, but with Gaithersburg, Maryland, documenting something in his first book, and with all of Montgomery County with the hidden history in his new book. So thank you again for being here today. And thank you all in Montgomery County for listening to the podcast and subscribing.
Thanks for listening to What's Happening MoCo. Please subscribe via your favorite podcasting platform and follow us on Facebook. This podcast is brought to you by County Cable Montgomery, your source for news and information from the Montgomery County government. Connect with us via cable, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for County Cable MoCo.